This is the Savage 775 shotgun, and today we're going to do a little bit of shooting with it, talk about the general handling, the general performance of the shotgun, and in general just have a little bit of fun. Now, if you're interested on the mechanics of the shotgun and a teardown of it, I have a video on that previously already up on the channel. You can search for Savage 775 on the channel and you'll be able to find it. Only have one other video on the gun. But today we want to focus on the shooting, not necessarily the mechanism of the gun as much. So if you're curious about the history or just a little bit of the background on the gun, that's what the other video is for. Today, we're just going to deal with shooting. And what better way to start that off than going ahead and getting it loaded? As I mentioned in that tabletop video, and as I'm sure I'll say several more times in this video, this particular example shoots exceptionally smooth. The reason for this is because it has a recoil spring that still has most of its strength, its friction components fit tight, and it has this funny choke compensator system out on the end of the barrel. So even though we'll be shooting heavy loads, in my opinion, this is probably the smoothest shooting conventional shotgun I think I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with. It is really, really smooth. And, you know, in a gun that, as I mentioned in that other video again, you can find these things pretty cheap because they're generally not very well regarded because they are kind of ugly in comparison to an Auto 5 anyway. But that's enough yapping. Let's shoot and then talk some more. That one didn't want to kick out there. I'm not entirely sure what that's about. We are set up for heavy loads, and of course, with this gun's friction system, it is pretty effective. Maybe I just wasn't holding it quite tight enough. There, that one kicked out. And it's a very difficult thing to try and convey through a camera, but this is, you know, these are AA heavy loads, just to show it to you guys. Of course, it's rubbed off in classic high quality Winchester fashion. These are 1 1/8 ounce, 1,200 foot per second, right? They're 3 dram loads, so they've ordinarily got quite a bit of kick. But this thing is so smooth. I think that it's almost even a gun that you could shoot out of your shoulder. You'd probably even be comfortable to shoot off of your face. It's that smooth. That's not always the case with long recoil guns, but you can get pretty much any long recoil gun to be this smooth with the right adjustment of springs and rings and lubrication on the magazine tube, and then if so equipped, these choke compensator systems do smooth out the recoil quite a bit. Because of course, in that long recoil design, you have this entire mechanism coming backwards. And if that mechanism isn't slowed down, recoil will be very abrupt when it bottoms out. But if that design is properly braked, it won't bottom out. And on this gun, it sometimes doesn't. And that's a very, very comfortable shooting experience indeed. Now, back to loading. Of course, it does load, like we'd shown before, in a very typical fashion, very familiar to us. One in the action, push the button to shut it. This gun does not have any sort of speed load provision, so you do have to hold in the bolt release to start filling the magazine tube. And it does have a total capacity of 4 in the tube, plus 1 in the chamber. But let's go ahead, run through some more shots here. I might mix up, you know, shooting from the gun not in my shoulder versus the gun in my shoulder. One thing that I would knock this gun for, in comparison to maybe some of the other guns we've looked at, is it is not terribly well pointy. The humped receiver, I think, makes that worse. I like, you know, the dehumped receiver rather. The Auto 5's hump, I find to make it point very naturally because the top of the receiver is a 90-degree angle, whereas here, you know, your eye sort of has to focus into the groove instead of just focusing at the rear of the receiver. It's, I guess, this is a little bit of wine cork sniffery, but as you throw the gun sort of up into your shoulder, right, your eye does not naturally find this track, at least my eye doesn't find this track as naturally as it finds the 90-degree angle at the rear of the receiver. Not a major thing, but this gun is a little bit slower pointing, all things considered. That extra weight at the end of the barrel, I don't really mind. I know people complain about that with these systems, but I don't even really notice it in the balance. That, you know, if you blind-handed me this or an Auto 5 and asked me to swing it around and tell you which had the choke on it, I don't think I'd actually be able to tell you. And for those wondering, we have our choke set to modified today because the targets we're shooting are pretty close, and really even something wider than modified would benefit us. But on that note, because I pointed out every video, we are shooting targets that are very close, so that way you guys' viewing experience of the targets is a little bit easier, and I don't have to embarrass myself by missing a bunch at more difficult targets. So in that way, it's a win-win. With that yammering aside, I'm sure there's already people complaining we're not shooting enough, so let's go ahead and put this thing through some more paces. All right, we'll go ahead and shoot a few rounds out of the thing here. I'll start with the first couple out of my shoulder, then transition to it in my shoulder, just to give you guys an idea of maybe how this thing points. There we go. Try another one from low position. Might have been just a touch behind. It did break, of course, but I might have been just a touch behind that one. Probably could have broken it better. Start with one in my shoulder. Couldn't tell you. I may have shot over that one. May have shot ahead of that one. I might be shooting too far in front of all of these. Let's see. There we go. I led that one a little bit less. And I guess part of it is I'm standing a little bit more of an angle to hopefully give you guys a better view of more of an angled shot. And so because of that, the amount of lead required, this is one of those deceptive targets where the amount of lead it takes because it's curving, right? It's accelerating this way, so the amount of lead you need is continually increasing. We'll make it a little bit more interesting, hopefully, because of that. But there's 5 rounds through the thing. It does shoot good. And man, I want to stress, these are heavy loads, and this thing just makes them so enjoyable to shoot. It's really a fantastic little gun. Now, just as a little bit of an experiment here, I will switch the friction ring around, and then we'll try some light loads in the gun, just to let you guys see what that looks like. I'm going to try attempt to do this standing up. It's obviously easier if you sit down, but it is possible to do standing up. I'm certainly not the first person to attempt it. I'm going to stick the forend underneath my arm so it doesn't get damaged. That barrel is really hot, and I'm sticking it between my legs. Take our friction ring off. Swap our option ring around. Our control ring, I think is what I usually call it. Throw that barrel back on there. Lock the bolt back. Throw our forend on, and then throw our cap. There will be people that tell you that doing this process is like way too hard or it's way too slow, but you know, if I can do it standing up, certainly sitting down, you guys can do it. And what was that? Maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds? Certainly not very long. And then the advantage is, as smooth as that gun was with heavies, we can still get it to cycle lights. At least last I remember testing this, it cycled lights. We'll just throw a couple rounds in the gun here and see if it does in fact now cycle lights in just as smoothly as it had done heavies. I mean, just like that, right? You can't complain with those sorts of results. That one snuck a little low on me there. Still got it though. I mean, it's just such a nice, smooth shooting gun. To be honest with you, I picked my head up off the gun and I could not, I stopped focusing on the target as much as maybe I should have. I am going to give myself a redo on that one. See if I can redeem myself twice here. It's behind it, believe it or not. Try it one more time. And that one dove underneath me. I'm having a hard time of things here with this gun today. Let's go ahead and see if we can't hit a couple of more. As enthusiastic as I am about how smooth this gun shoots, I will again point out that the sighting system is not my preference. I'm not going to use that as the only excuse. Certainly I'm going to try other shotguns today, and then we'll find out once I've shot those if I'm just not shooting particularly well with this target that I've got set up. But the sighting system on this gun, I do want to emphasize, is just not my favorite. I am not a fan of the combination of receiver without a humpback makes it hard for snap shooting, sure, but even whenever you start with the gun in your shoulder, you just sort of have that bead floating on top of the receiver. And I know there's many other guns like that, but with an Auto 5, it feels more sure because you have that 90-degree here. Whereas with this gun, you know, the bead floating a little bit lower, a little bit higher isn't quite as discernible because you don't have that hard edge, right? You can't just set your eye up to look right at where the corner of the receiver is like you can with an Auto 5. And as much as people complained about the humpback, I want to emphasize, right, the counter complaint that I have to that is having that humpback gives you a definite, repeatable rear sighting position, like a mid bead, only it's like a rear bead, whereas this gun has no such thing, right? You're just sort of left, you know, at the whim of the gun itself. But with that complaining done, let's see if we can hit 2 shots here. I'll be honest, I picked that one up slow. Let's see if I got another shell to throw in. Top that off. Try again. The wind jacked with me there, but to be honest, even if there wasn't wind, I probably would have missed it. Try one more. There we go. I think I was leading those other ones maybe a little bit too much, but there's another hit. And really, that's about all I've got to say about this particular shotgun. It shoots really well. It is very smooth. I'm not saying all 775s and all 755s will shoot this smooth, but with a recoil spring that still has all of its strength, with a good tight friction system, with a choke if your gun's got it, you can have an Auto 5 that shoots as smooth as I'm describing this thing shooting, right? And any of these guns can work this way, right? You can get a Franchi to shoot this smooth. You can get a Belgian gun, a Japanese gun. You can get whatever to shoot this smooth. It's just a matter of having the right parts in the gun. And this one, it worked out great. And so even though I can't shoot it particularly well, boy, it sure is a joy to shoot. This is sort of become my de facto. Somebody wants to see what long recoil is all about, and I hand them this one so that they can shoot it and see, wow, that makes a heavy 12 gauge load feel like a 20 gauge. And I know that's a little bit cliche, but this gun does do that. And in a gun that's not terribly heavy, and it balances pretty well. Certainly by the time you have a Beretta, right, an aluminum receiver gas gun that's this light, it's not going to be anywhere near this smooth, no matter how much that upsets the Beretta people to know. It's a matter of physics, right? If you spread out that impulse over a longer period of time with the whole reciprocating mass coming backwards and then stopping before it bottoms out, you can't really get much more smooth than that except by adding more travel to the system. So that's pretty much it for the Savage 775. I hope you guys, right, of the guns that I've shown off, this is probably one of the most underrated. You can find these for sale for really cheap sometime. Maybe they'll need a couple of parts, but you can find parts. It shares a lot of parts with the other long recoil guns. And boy, they just shoot pretty darn well. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, or just the more technical discussion videos, or whatever else it is that hops into my mind that I want to make a video on, you can support me on Patreon. There's links in the description. I hope you all have a nice time, and I will see you for the next video.